Hey class users, Chris from the NACLAC class help desk team back with another video, and we're looking at one of the new goodies, the triage mechanism, which is a new feature of class. Let's have a look at it. So in a nutshell, it's a little bit of an offshoot of the new intake system as well. And to get to here, we would click on the primary menu class and then look at the new intake, which is where we are. And I'll also be showing you the triage list, which is here in a second. So to create a new triage, first you'd want to know maybe why you'd want to do that. Okay, so we're in the intake procedure, and the first thing you usually want to know is what kind of service type maybe we're going to be delivering, or we think we're going to deliver. And which service type we select will depend on what you see on intake, and also when you're doing a new service generally. But sometimes you just don't know. So we've got a way to cover that. A good way is to select triage. And again, we've got a few new fields that pop up just because it's triage. And maybe you don't know, or maybe you're actually just someone on the phones and you're not very experienced with this stuff, or that's your job. You're an admin person, you take appointments and things. So we can use triage to set all this stuff up and have a more senior person look over it and decide to take it on or not, or maybe refer them back to do a referral on information, etc. So to the basics that you need to do a triage, just like an information referral, you can actually save it straight off the step one of the intake page. Whereas anything that requires a conflict check, such as an advice or say a more complex representation service like a court or tribunal, you have to go through all the steps. Let me just try and make clear an issue relating to triage and conflict checking. Essentially, you have to make the choice when you are going to do the conflict check. Some people would want to do the conflict check at this point using the intake mechanism. Others may not want to do that straight away. Perhaps your administrators, say on the phones, don't do conflict checks. They just take the information, the call, and then when the person who's taking up the service deciding whether or not to carry it on, they would do the conflict check themselves. And so because of that, we haven't locked down when you do the conflict check, but you do need to do one. But here we can just save the triage because we don't know if they're going to be a client yet. Okay, there's a few compulsory things, but we'll go through these ones you need. A priority setting is always a good one. As I said, this is just for triage. It's like a traffic light system, and essentially these will be put at the top. So if you think it's important, you can rate it as high, medium, or low. I'll maybe put this one as low. Data service usually today, but you could backdate them. Funding category is still compulsory, so generally you could take a guess. Problem type could be useful as well. Isn't compulsory, but I might keep it consistent here and put in, say, a tenancy one. And there we go. There's a couple there. Maybe it's a bond issue. Could be multiple ones as well that you can tick, and we'll add that. And where the service location usually defaults to your main office or outreach if it is. And again, created by would also default to you, the worker, only if you're not a worker, which you have to put that in yourself like I have as an administrator. Now, assigned to is another really useful one. Say it's a tenancy one, like we're saying, you highly likely to want to just assign this to maybe your tenancy team or a tenancy specialist or solicitor or something. So this is the staff, and I'll put this over to Matilda. And you could also assign to multiple people if you're not exactly sure and let them work it out themselves. That's easy to do there. Let's put in a fake name. It's Chris and test, and you could put in, say, a mobile to contact them or some mechanism by which you can contact them as well. And we can also do things like add the basics intake notes, so you can tell the person what it is. So this is a, I don't know, tenancy issue, etc., etc. And then we're ready to go. We can save it, saving the service. And once we've saved it, we can head over to the triage screen here by clicking triage. And here we are. We've got the triage list view, it's called. We can see the high one that's been done previously as floated to the top, because this priority traffic light system is the default mechanism. But there's other things you could do it. You might, for example, want to search only by assigned to. So we could, for example, do Matilda. And these things are consistent with the search functions anywhere else in class as well. Just put Matilda in, and now it'll just filter for that. Or we can go, oh, that's a mistake, and we'll just clear it down here. Come back to everybody. The other thing you can do is click on that little filter. This is part of the same again as the search functions, and just choose Matilda that way if you're not sure, if you've got, like 25 kind of things all in a list down the row. So there's all kinds of different ways you can do it. Some people might want to search only for suburbs and such. Okay, so what do we do once we've got a triage? We're going, okay, well, this is me. I'm the solicitor. I've come to triage and I'm checking the ones that are assigned to me, perhaps. I'm going to click on it and decide what to do with it. So we arrive at this service and we have a good look at it, and we could even check out the actions, which was the original notes for more information. And that's where we got that information that came off the intake. But we've decided, yep, we want to take that on. Okay, what do? We could try and save it. There are actually things that you may need to do as compulsory, but the first thing we actually do is we need to fill out the proper information by attaching a client, assuming, of course, that you've already done the conflict check, or you would have to do it at this point before proceeding. At the moment, the person's not a client until you decide they are. So you're proceeding with the triage, turning it, say, into an advice, because that's what you're going to do. You're going to ring them back and give them some legal advice. Make sure that you cover all, for example, the advice compulsory things like mode of service delivery, a telephone and that, and a telephone in this case, and any of the other information that has the red dot meaning compulsory. Obviously, you would do that seriously and not so quickly as me. Now we can attach the client. You're about to attach the client. Yes, we are. And now they've attached that successfully, and we head over to the client page. And here they are. Chris tests you. Again, you want to make sure that you've got all the information. That might be the first thing you do when you call them and go, can I have a little bit more information about you, your name and emails, etc. And also the service is back here now as an advice attached to that client, and you can proceed with that advice and do all the usual things like deal with notes and actions and things like that. So that is the basis of it. If I click back now to triage, we can see that because it's changed from a triage into an advice, it is no longer there. Someone may not, say, be contactable, or for example, might not turn up to the appointment, and you can also delete a triage. You simply select it and hit delete, and it'll go, hey, you really shouldn't delete. Now, volunteers generally are not set to be allowed to do this. You would want to have someone who is a general staff permission, and but that could be tailored to your CLC. Obviously, we just don't want volunteers being able to delete things willy-nilly. But that's the basic nature of triages. This list can be used in a whole bunch of different ways. You can customize this list, for example, and do things by certain problem types or anything like that. So that is, in a nutshell, what triage is all about, and we hope that's useful for you.